Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today, as you can see, I am indeed here with a Darkrai Hypno list, the sort of standard version of running Darkrai. We've obviously already profiled the expanded version of running Darkrai with Mana and Lasers. This is the standard one using the new Hypno with Goodnight Babies. So yeah, we're going to jump straight into it, starting off with Darkrai himself, the poster boy of the deck. Both of his attacks are pretty good. Dark Pulse doing 20 damage plus 20 more for each Dark Energy on your side of the field. Can amount up. We are running 7 Dark Energy and Max Elixir and Oblivion Wing, so we can get a lot of energy on board in just a couple of turns. But the big attack, Dark Head, is going to be the one that's going to be doing more work, really. 80 damage, and then if the opponent is asleep, 80 more. So if that's 160, and with if you're able to get a Fighting Fury belt, that's 170, which does knock out pretty much half of the EXs in the format at the moment. There's a relatively even split between 180 HP and 170 HP, so we are getting EX knockouts on a lot of important EXs, things like Manectric, things like Yveltal themselves, all have 170 HP. So with this Dark Head, if we do put them to sleep with Hypno, we can indeed knock them out in one shot, which is really nice. Much like we do still have a Yveltal EX. These two really complement each other type-wise. The Darkrai is resistant to Psychic, which is nice against Night March, as well as the baby Yveltals, but is weak to Fighting type. Whereas the Yveltal EX is resistant to Fighting type, but weak to Lightning. So both sort of have their pros and cons in certain matchups. But the fact that they can they have type coverage really well over one another is really nice. Onto the actual attacks, we all know how good Yveltal is, but Evil Ball doing 20 damage times the amount of energy, 20 damage plus 20 damage more times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. You've seen we have the Max Elixir, so we can actually set up this Evil Ball in one turn, which is really, really good. And we can actually reach this 180, just knock out any other EX Pokemon that sort of are in the way at the same time, which is really nice. And then Y Cyclone, we do have access to it because we are running DCEs, so we can get this set up in a turn as well. Preserving energy again is also really nice, especially if you know you're going to go down next turn. You can build up a Darkrai on the bench just to sort of have an immediate response attacker. So yeah, as I said, the resistance is really nice as well. This is going to be to deal with things like Gallade, Lucario, Garchomp, anything that decides to come in and try and just continually one-shot these Darkrais. We can respond with either a Yveltal or a baby Yveltal, which both have resistance, meaning that they have to really push for these knockouts. And then we just refuse to bench the other Darkrai that game, just so they really have to work for the rest of their prizes. The other nice thing is, obviously, Yveltal EX's damage isn't really affected by anything ability-wise. Darkrai, you have to have abilities online to be able to use Goodnight Babies to then get the huge damage bonus. So if our opponent is playing Garbodor or Hex Maniac, something like that, we can still do huge damage with the Yveltal EX if we need to. It's just sort of like a backup attacker in case we do get hexed or something like that, which is really nice. Especially because we know how good this EX is sort of from the offset anyway, so it's not like we're using a subpar EX just to try and cover our backs. We're using a good EX, which kind of shows you how good Darkrai can be. We're pairing him with another of the strongest EXs in the format. We are, of course, running 3 baby Yveltal. Oblivion Wing letting you energy accelerate is really nice, especially with the addition of Max Elixir into the format. We can actually set up these high attack costs with single energy in a turn, just doing things like manually attaching and then Oblivion Wing, and maybe you get a Max Elixir as well. You can actually attach 3 energy in a turn without even using one of your DCEs if you want to. So yeah, this provides really, really nice energy acceleration, and of course Yveltal is fantastic against Night March, especially if they can't find their Fighting Fury belts, because you still do one-shot both of the Night Marchers. Unfortunately, you don't, like I say, if they do have their Fighting Fury belts on, but if they don't manage to find them, we can still one-shot them really, really nicely. We also are running a 2-2 Zoroark line. Zoroark is probably one of the best sort of supporting Pokemon we've got in the format at the moment. He's a fantastic non-EX attacker, doing 10 plus 30 for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. With all of the Shaymin sort of draw support we've got in the format, most decks are running 2 to 3 Shaymin, so most decks are going to have 2 to 3 bench at least. just to be able to respond with an attacker, and maybe they need another setup Pokemon. And then a Shaymin. That means Mindjack is doing 100 for a DCE right off the bat if they've got 3 benched Pokemon. Then with things like Skyfield and maybe just a full bench, you can actually do huge damage, which is really nice. Stand-in as well is really powerful, especially with Floatstone, of course, because it means we can actually Max Elixir to anything we want, really. Max Elixir only works if when you get it onto your bench Pokemon, but if we promote a Zoroark with Floatstone, we can actually put it on whichever Pokemon we want, as long as we don't want it on the Zoroark. And if we do, we don't need to promote it anyway. So this way, we have a lot more freedom over where we place our Max Elixirs, which means we can set up the Yveltal or the Darkrai if we want to, rather than having to attach it to whatever we find. Yeah, other than that, we know how good Zoroark is as a non-EX attacker. He's sort of been featured in a lot of decks, and it can really punish your opponent for trying to build a big bench and have a lot of sort of spare attackers and run through a lot of their deck with Shaymins, things like that. So Zoroark is really nice. And then to be able to pull off the constant 160, we doing of course have a 2/2 Hypno line. Goodnight Babies, putting both actives asleep. Our active asleep isn't too much of an issue because we have All Night Party, meaning we can immediately wake up and actually heal 30, which is a really nice concept. I'll go over that in a second. But being able to put our opponent asleep obviously gives us access to that bonus 80 damage, meaning that we can one-shot them. And if we don't, they then have to, if we have the All Night Party out, they are indeed going to be awake. But you can still use this as a stall mechanic. Maybe you don't have, if you don't have the All Night Party out and you're just going to try and stall them out, and maybe you're just looking for one or two more energy, there is stall potential with this. But this deck is going to try and win pretty much after it's set up in 3 turns, so hopefully you won't need to do that too much. And then obviously the 2 Shaymin. We all know how good Shaymin is, being able to Sky Return, set up for more cards, and then we do have access to Sky Return with both Max Elixir but DCE primarily as well. We know how good setup is, so no real sort of explanation required with the Shaymins. Onto the trainers, we've got 2 Battle Compressor. Battle Compressor is really nice paired with Oblivion Wing, because it means you can throw away a Dark Energy on turn 1 and know that you're going to be getting value out of Oblivion Wing. We can also throw away some of these one-off supporters for later on, and it's like an overall consistency booster as well. We get rid of things that we don't really need for the matchup. We get rid of any unwanted resources that we perhaps just don't want to be drawing later on in the game. And obviously, like I say, it gets value out of Oblivion Wing as well, which is really nice. Also really good with like the VS Seeker combo as well. If you don't have a supporter, but you do have a VS Seeker, you can throw a supporter away with Compressor, like a Sycamore or maybe the Birch or whatever, and then get it back in the same turn. So it's like another another 2 outs to a supporter as well, providing you can find yourself with a VS Seeker on turn 1. We've got a single level ball, not too influential, but it does indeed search out Hypno for absolutely free. Maybe we don't quite have the cards to be able to discard with Ultra Ball. This way we don't have to have the cards. We can still search for the Hypno, which is really nice. Sometimes obviously we are going to be wanting to discard the cards just to be able to get value out of Oblivion Wing. But that being said, sometimes it's not always beneficial. So we do have access to be able to grab the Hypno later on. It can get Zoruas and Drowsees as well, but it's really nice just for getting that insta-Hypno, which is obviously really good value. Max Elixir is a new card from the new set, and is a real sort of... it's really nice for getting set up quickly. Dark decks already kind of could with Oblivion Wing, and then in Expanded they've got Dark Patch. We've now got... it's not Dark Patch, unfortunately. It's nowhere near as good as Dark Patch. I say it's nowhere near as good. It is really good, and it means you can actually set up as quickly as if you did have Dark Patch. It's just a little bit less reliable, considering you're looking at the top 6 rather than guaranteeing a Dark from the discard. So yeah, it's not always that useful. But it is, when you do hit the Max Elixir, it is really good, because it can sort of give you that tempo boost to be able to swing for your swing with a Yveltal a turn early, or maybe get that Dark Head attack one turn before your opponent was expecting it. Maybe you attach the DCE and then Max Elixir the energy on. Maybe so they're not really expecting it. It's not going to work too much because we've got no real surefire way of making sure there's a lot of energy in the deck and not many other cards. But later on in the game, we are indeed running a Super Rod and things like that, so we can try and chunk out the deck with as much energy as possible, maybe to swing for one final knockout with Evil Ball or even Dark Pulse. So yeah, there definitely are outs. This is more of a rather than a Max Elixir deck, it's more of a deck that runs Max Elixir just to try and help itself a little bit where it can. It's not sort of guaranteed to work all the time, but it's not a deck that tries to have a constant sort of flow of energy with Max Elixir as well. We are running the Rod, like I say, good recovery on Pokemon, good recovery on the Dark Energy as well. Dark Energy are kind of useless if they're not in the discard or the deck. You don't really want them in the hand because you want to be attaching DCs for the turn. So yeah, we can get them back into the deck for Max Elixir value later on. Obviously, also really good being able to just get your Pokemon back. Maybe you've had to discard the Yveltal early, or maybe it's gone down, and that's your surefire way of winning this game. It's also nice getting these sort of pieces back as well. Okay, so onto the Trainer's Mail. We are indeed running 2 Trainer's Mail. Not 4, simply because there's you don't need 4, I don't think. The deck kind of runs itself. As long as you can get into the Hypno relatively early and your Energy relatively early, which you really can with the Oblivion Wing and Max Elixirs. You don't need a lot of trainers. Obviously, 2 bonus consistency cards is always really nice. But yeah, the deck isn't reliant on having a really fast sort of trainer draw engine, so you don't need 4 at all. Ultra Ball's in here, just constant Pokemon search is really nice, and the double discard for Shaymin is nice and helpful when you need a large setup, and of course discarding energy for Oblivion Wing is also really useful. And then 4 VS Seeker, just because 3 or 4 is pretty much the standard number at the moment, depending on what deck you're playing. On to the supporters, we've got 1 AZ, being able to sort of, if your opponent does have a way of getting rid of, well, yeah, Lysandering you up, and you aren't able to use Zoroark, you can use it as a switching card. Good recovery as well. If you've just got Darks on the field, you don't mind sort of throwing them away, because we can indeed use Oblivion Wing to be able to attach them from the discard to the bench again, which is really nice. There's not, obviously we can pretty much always get out of the sleep that we put ourselves under through Zoroark or All Night Party, so that's never really going to be an issue. But it does help just sort of recovering HP and stuff like that. There's no surefire like real use for it. It's just really nice to have access to it, especially with the VS Seeker combo. Just because you can compress it away and then get it for when you need it, when your opponent tries to Lysandre stall you or something like that, and you don't have access to be able to use the Zoroark. Hex is obviously really nice for stopping anything that kind of wants to, kind of runs a Shaymin based draw, but is also really nice against things like Greninja. Greninja can be not a huge issue, but it can trade against the EXs really well, which is really not very nice. Unfortunately, if they use their first attack, they do also shot off our own Hypno, and they don't really use many energy, so it can be difficult to get a large Evil Ball on them. So yeah, that can be a bit annoying, but if we can stop their sort of pseudo bat drops, if we can stop their water shurikens for a turn, and perhaps even be able to chain it for 1 or 2 turns, we can really sort of slow them down as well as them slowing us down. We won't be able to one-shot them if they keep using their first attack to lock our abilities, but they won't be able to one-shot us just purely by using their attack. So it's kind of a trade-off. Unfortunately, we usually lose that trade-off if we can't go ahead really early, because we are running EX and they're not. But if we can take a couple of early prizes, which the deck definitely can, just because of how quick it is, it doesn't really matter too much. Obviously, against things like bats as well, it's really nice. And anything that wants to try and Shaymin a lot in a turn, perhaps if you can get it against Night March, is always really nice turn 1, just to try and stop them getting as many night matches into the discard as possible. It just means they can. It slows them down really and gives the EX decks more of a chance. Especially now Yveltal isn't as a surefire way of being able to counter them as it used to be. Now that Fighting Fury Belt is in the format. We've got one Lysandre. Obviously, Lysandre is always really useful. This deck actually doesn't mind trading, well, wants to trade against the X's just because it can consistently one-shot turn after turn after turn. So you're not actually looking for too much to be able to Lysandre. You may want to Lysandre a Shaymin for your final prize, things like that. There's not often too much that you're going to be wanting to Lysandre turn after turn. But that being said, having access to one just if your opponent tries to play the 7 prize game, it means you can pull it back to a 6 prize game and take 3 EX knockouts if you need to. Plus with VS Seeker we don't have 1, we have 5 technically. So we can use more if we need to, but if not we can just use it for those final 2 prizes on a Shaymin or something like that. The Birch is in here kind of as a placeholder. It doesn't have to be a Birch, it's just kind of here to say we want a shuffle draw card. Could be a Judge, could be a Shauna, anything like that. I've gone for Birch just because I think Birch can be good if you have good flips on the day. Birch is obviously one of the best supports we've got in the format, and Judge can sometimes actually hinder you more than your opponent. That being said, I think there's justifiable cases for all 3 of them. I think Shauna the least probably. I think Birch is better than Shauna. But yeah, this is just sort of to signify we want a shuffle draw card in here, rather than specifically saying this is a Birch. This is saying this is a shuffle card somewhere. And then we've got 4 Sycamore, of course, because Sycamore is the best supporter in the format that doesn't have too many downsides. We've got the 1 Xerosic to be able to deal with, like I say earlier on, Garbodors can really shut us down. So to be able to deal with the tool that they attach, especially under Toad Garb lock, which is really annoying, it means we can still actually get that Dark Head to do huge damage, rather than just relying on it doing 80 against anything that's running Garbodor. This way we can still do between 160 and 170 against anything running Garbodor if we need to, which is really nice. Also helps with anything that is sort of running DCE that really wants to really wants to try and knock us out in a turn. Most decks that can one-shot will run some form of special energy, usually DCE, but things like Toad's DCEs, Night March's DCEs, anything with special energy, it's just really useful for. We've got 3 All Night Party. All Night Party is the out for us to be able to get out of our own sleep, of course. Goodnight Babies puts both the active and the bench to sleep, the active and your opponent's active to sleep. So we do need a way of reliably being able to get out of the sleep ourselves. We do still have stand-in if we don't have access to the All Night Party. But if we do, All Night Party actually gives us his 30 heal as well, which is really nice. Kind of works as a rough seas on our active each turn. Even if we're not taking a knockout or we don't need to do the knockout, maybe they've just got like a 60 HP active Pokemon, it's still useful for us to use Goodnight Babies and then All Night Party just for the 30 heal, just because eventually we can heal down to 0 and they have to start again, which is really nice. We can kind of use it as a pseudo rough seas, which is a really nice option for the deck to have, especially now. Well, in a format where one shots are so readily available, if we can, or well, 2 shots are readily available as well. If we can reduce the chance of being able to have our opponent chain knockouts, it means we can sometimes swing the game in our favour rather than theirs. Obviously, it does work on their side though as well. So if you aren't getting the knockout, do remember that they are going to be healing by 30 that next turn. Just to factor into how much damage you're doing as well. We've got the 2 Fighting Fury Belt. Adding the 40 HP is huge against things like Night March, especially when you have resistance to Pumpkaboos. It means they excuse me. It means they really have to push to be able to knock out a Darkrai with a Fighting Fury Belt in one turn, because you basically have 240 HP, so they have to look for so much. It's sometimes pretty much impossible for them to do if they don't run Muscle Band over Fighting Fury Belt, which not many are. The plus 10 obviously gets us from 160 to 170, which knocks out pretty much half of the X's in the format at the moment, which is really nice. It's less important with Yveltal regarding the extra HP because Night Match can still one-shot us, but there are other decks that try and one-shot things like Vespiquen and stuff, where the plus 40 is really, really useful. Just because they have to put so many Pokemon into the discard, it becomes really, really risky for them to do that and take the 2 prizes. If you can then respond with a KO, because sometimes they've had to put pretty much all of their Pokemon into the discard just to be able to reach and be able to get that knockout, which is really, really difficult for them. The extra 20 damage is the extra 10 damage is less important, I guess, with the Yveltal, because it goes from 90 to 100 on Y Cyclone, where it's going to be it's going to be a 2-shot anyway. But Evil Ball, it does mean you need 1 less energy to be able to one-shot 170 HP EXs, which I suppose is useful in a similar vein to Darkhead as well. 2 Floatstone, obviously hugely useful when paired with Stand and Zoroark, means that we have free retreat on pretty much anything we want. Like I say, incredibly useful for Max Elixir, meaning we can Max Elixir wherever we want, and also means we can't really be Lysandre stalled all too much without them having a way of being able to discard the tool or stop us from using Zoroark somehow as well. So yeah, having the Zoroark Floatstone combo is really, really powerful. And then of course finally we've got 4 DCE, just because both Darkrai is DC compatible, Yveltal is DC compatible and gets huge benefit from Evil Ball. Zoroark is DC compatible, Shaymin is technically DC compatible as well. You're never really going to be using it, but you do have access to the single setup Sky Returns, which is nice. And then 7 Dark Energy, just so you have well enough to be able to get some in the discard to use with Oblivion Wing, get value out of it, but also keep some in the deck to get value out of Max Elixirs as well. These 2 cards are kinda counterintuitive, because you want energy in the discard with this one and energy in the deck with this one. But if you can try and sort of keep a nice equilibrium between both, and well, you can sort of gain value from both just as consistently, which is really, really nice. But yeah, I really, really like this sort of new lease of life in the dark type archetype. I think Darkrai is probably better in Expanded, but I still think he's really, really good in Standard, and definitely is another really, really powerful sort of partner with Yveltal, which probably didn't need any more really powerful partners, but hey, got one anyway. So yeah, I'm going to jump onto the ladder, jump into a game, and see if we can get some wombo combos with this deck, doing 170 damage in a turn. Okay, so we've got ourselves a game here against Chrysor69. Looks like it was metal and water. Not sure what combo we're going to be seeing here. He's indeed flipping some coins, and we win the coin flip, which is nice. We do get to go first, get some energy down, things like that. Fortunately, start with a pretty rough hand, though he has a mulligan as well. Running a Misty's, that's interesting. And we have an even, potentially not even worse hand, but still a pretty annoying hand. We'll start Yveltal, and because we're going first, I'm going to hold the other bench Pokemon just because I don't know what we're going to be seeing. Level Balls and Metal Energies make me think it's probably some sort of Bronzong. Bronzong or Metal with Seismitoad maybe. Paralysity is good to know. I'm going to take all of these cards just because hopefully we can get rid of a few cards here anyway. It will reduce our odds of having a good Shaymin, but it should be okay. Odds are we'll get into a supporter or something if we don't. So I'm going to go ahead and take all 3 of these. Could be better, could be worse. I think I'll do this for now. And we do see a Seismitoad. Okay, that's kind of what I was expecting to an extent. Gonna go straight for the Battle Compressor, getting a Dark, a Sycamore, and potentially a Hex, potentially a Xerosic. Probably just a Hex or something. I might not even get a Hex here. I might just leave it for now because he's going to be using... I might just get too dark and leave it at that. I think that's okay. I don't want to bench this Yveltal, which is kind of a shame. I'm going to attach the Floatstone here. We'll put this into play. And we'll go for 1 Shaymin for 2. Hope we can get an Ultra Ball or something. Level Ball and Yveltal. Okay, so it looks like we might not be seeing too much of Darkrai early on in this game. I think I'm going to bench the Yveltal. I'm actually going to go for the Level Ball to grab Zorua. I will just double check how many Zoroark we've got. I think it was 2, but yeah, 2 Zoroark. Okay. We'll drop that down. I could get value from the Shaymin, but I think I just want to go for the Sycamore here to try and get some more cards. Anyway, I'm pretty certain we're going to be seeing a Toad punch us here. We get both evolutions, which is nice, and we get the Xerosic. We'll attach the Floatstone just because we probably won't be able to next turn. Don't get an energy, which is really unfortunate. I am going to VS Seeker the Sycamore back, just in case he does get the DCE. And then I'll pass over. So yeah, it looks like it's probably like a Bronzong deck, but just with a Toad as an attacker. Mainly metal attackers, just Toad as like another attacker. Goes for the letter and gets 2 metals. And only attaches 1 metal, so we actually do get another turn of trainers here. That's really nice. Goes for Skylar. Potentially like a Headringer or something on this Yveltal. Gets a Delinquent. Okay. So we are going to be seeing a Delinquent next turn. Which is kind of annoying, but hey. Nothing much we can do about it. Going to evolve both of our pokes here. Is there anything we want to do? We can't use any Pokemon. We don't really want to ditch any Pokemon, so I think we're just going to go for the Sycamore again here. Unfortunately, we are getting rid of Hex and Xerosic, but we get a DCE. We get a Dark as well. Okay, so what we're going to... yeah, we can't even put him asleep. That's annoying. That's really annoying. We'll go for the Max Elixir. We do indeed hit the Dark Energy, so we're going to start powering up a Yveltal. I might even be tempted to just build up a Yveltal here and start swinging with it. No, I think we should try and play relatively cautiously. Next turn we can quite happily discard the Zoroark, the Super Rod, and one of the DCEs. Or maybe even the... Oh no, we'll go for the VS Seeker now. Go for the VS Seeker, getting the Sycamore back. Next turn, when he delinquents, we'll get rid of these 3. We'll have to get rid of DCE, but that's okay. I'm going to go for Oblivion Wing. Doing a little bit of damage to this Seismitoad, and then starting to build up a Yveltal on the bench. So it'll have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 140, 160 now. Wait, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. Okay, 140, I was right. I wasn't 100% sure. So we are going to discard the 3 that I said. And we'll see what he goes for. Goes for the Crushing Hammer. Gets a Heads, probably on the active, but maybe on the bench. Okay, interesting that we went for the bench. Because that means we can just attach it again next turn with Oblivion Wing, and it means we can then one-shot him the turn after. What 2 pokes do we want to discard here? These, well, definitely the Yveltal and definitely the Shaymin as well. We can still put him to sleep. We can actually really abuse this sleep here. That could be nice. It's a level ball. We're probably going to be seeing the Bronzong line here. Actually a Durant, okay. So, are we seeing some sort of... kind of counterintuitive if they've... interesting. Also reduced his own damage. I don't know whether that was intentional or whether that was a bit of a misplay on his part. Interesting. I could go for the Birch here, but I don't really need to dig for much, do I? I think we can go kind of aggressive here. And then we're going to go for the Goodnight Babies to put us both to sleep. I'm going to stand in with Zoroark and then retreat back out. Let's just check we're not knocking out. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. So we wouldn't knock out, so we do need to... We might as well attack with the Yveltal again, just to get an extra energy onto this Yveltal EX. Meaning that if he still tries to go for the hammers, we might still have enough energy to one-shot him. Or not one-shot him now, but knock him out. And he does indeed miss his sleep flip, which is really, really nice for us. Goes for the letter again. 2 letters in a deck is often quite weird. Attaches 1 to the Durant. This is the chip-off Durant. Discard until your opponent has 4 cards in hand. Goes for the Flare Grunt. Okay. So we're doing 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So we are knocking out this Toad this turn. And we do have access to trainers as well. Unfortunately we can't Y-Cyclone it to death. That's really annoying. But hey. We're just going to come in with the Yveltal and swing, I think. There's no reason to sort of go ham on resources here. It would be nice to be able to get this Darkrai down and start attaching to it, but I can't see it happening very reliably. I suppose we could go for the all-night party here, just to see if we get it. We do get it, so next turn we can sort of use it as a pseudo heal. But yeah, I think we're just going to go for the X-Ball to knock him out. And we'll take our first 2 prizes. So we get a DCE and a Zorua. Both are relatively kind of irrelevant, but hey. Goes for a Flare Grunt. Going to be getting that DCE, I'm sure. Though he still needs a bench Pokemon to live next turn, unless he has some way of being able to stop us attacking. Goes for Chip Off, which discards random cards from our hand until we have 4. Luckily we kept the DCE. So we do still get a huge Evil Ball for the knockout here. And we do indeed win the game. So not too much different to a normal Yveltal deck. But it does have access to... okay, it was actually just 1 Toad. That's really interesting. Really, really interesting deck. So yeah, not too much shown of the Darkrai, I suppose, but the Hypno was really, really useful, being able to stop that Toad lock for a turn. If you guys would like to see more from this deck, I do indeed get myself an Age/Line as I'm talking. If you'd like to see more of this deck, I know it didn't sort of show off Darkrai too much, but it was a good game for being able to show what Hypno does. But yeah, if you do want some more battles with this deck, just let me know. I'll either do them on a live stream at some point in the next couple of weeks, or I'll do a video in the next couple of weeks, just half an hour of battles with the deck. I don't mind at all. If you guys let me know, I can know to do that, and I will indeed provide. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke with a standard deck analysis on our favourite Darkrai Hypno, and I will see you in another video.